What is going on, Swoopers? Welcome back to another episode of Swoop Luke. In this episode, I'm joined by Matthew from the Salty Bulldog. I want to talk about Lachie Sullivan. I want to get Matthew's thoughts on Matthew's thoughts on the Western Bulldogs this season, on his thoughts next season. Matthew, thank you for joining us on the channel, mate.
No, it's a pleasure. Swoop, great to be working with you again.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, because we linked up. Was it might have been would have been before the Western Bulldogs Collingwood game, right? Or was it
Yeah,
pre-finals?
it was ahead of it was ahead of that game. Yeah, it was an exciting time, Friday night, and can't deny it. Collingwood are a big club, and it's a big occasion when the Dogs get a home game against them under the lights. So, no, we were pretty excited about it, and we thought we'll get a bit of a Magpie insight to see what makes them tick, and yeah, no, it was good fun. It was a good episode. Just wasn't a great result.
No, it was one of those games where it's ebbed and flowed. I was at that game, and I dare say you probably were too. It was a good game, and I think we got you guys there again at I was gonna call it Etihad at Marvel for another Bulldogs home game. I think next year.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I haven't totally familiarized myself with the fixture yet beyond the first
Yeah,
couple of games.
couple games. Yeah,
Uh, but no, always a good test against Collingwood. They're always a challenge, no matter where they are on the ladder.
yeah,
And it's always a really good atmosphere. So it's
yeah.
it's
It
one of those
is,
ones that
isn't
you
it?
look for.
Yeah, it's always a good game against the doggies. My cousin's a big doggies fan, so I've always had a soft spot for him. And you got Caleb Poulter over there doing good things, Adam Treloar as well. And yeah, I can't say anything sort of bad about the doggies. How do you think that your season went
Oh,
this year?
well, I could say a lot of bad things about the way things went this year from a Bulldogs perspective. Yeah, just really disappointing.
Yeah,
Is the word that I would use to sum it up very succinctly. I had a lot of promise and a lot of expectation. The club themselves said that they believed the list was top for caliber.
yep,
I believed that as well. I thought there was definitely the potential for the Dogs to at least get to a preliminary final, possibly even further. The first half of the season was solid. They sort of by the midway point of the year they were knocking on the door of the top four.
hmm
Um, Albeit it probably wasn't the most convincing manner of football they were playing along the way, but they were still
yeah.
thereabouts.
But
But
still
yeah,
thereabouts. Just have to win.
the second half of the year was very disappointing. Some really bad losses, particularly the West Coast one.
Yep,
And
yep,
really, in the end, the way they were playing, they didn't deserve to make finals.
yeah.
So a real wasted year, I think, unfortunately.
And how do you sort of see next year going?
I like what the Dogs have done this off season.
Yep,
So the last couple of years, we've sort of allowed things to meander a bit off the back of a grand final appearance where we had a very good year and very nearly won it. We
yep,
snuck into the finals the following year, literally by 1 point, thanks
yep.
to your mob. This year we weren't quite so lucky. Uh, and I think that's the wake up call that the club needed. I think both in terms of the restructuring and the on field and the off field has been encouraging.
Yep.
They've gone and filled needs in the on field. They've brought in a couple of players that help shore up the side from a defensive point of view in terms of the pressure that they bring in Caulfield and James Harms. They've
Yes, yep.
brought in and in the draft, they targeted a batch of young midfielders as well. Riley Sanders, Joel Frazier, Aiden O'Driscoll as well a little later on, which, was a bit of a glaring gap in the list too. And some of the coaches they brought in as well. Like they really needed to restructure the off-field department as
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
Now, whether this amounts to anything is, remains to be seen. But
Exactly.
you can't accuse the club for a lack of trying. Like they've
Yeah.
flipped over every stone possible to make it work next year. Maybe it was 12 months too late, but at least they've acknowledged that they needed to do it, and they've gone ahead and done that. So we'll wait and see how it pans out. But yeah, I like the way they've approached the summer.
Yeah, and 100%. It kind of sounds like what the Pies did. Besides obviously Bevo's still coaching you guys, but getting parting ways with Buckley halfway through, changing sort of everything. The president, we get a new president, new CEO, and all this sort of thing. And sometimes change is as good as a holiday, as they say. So who knows? Like you still got a good core midfield. Like any team with Bontempelli in it is already a good team, and he's just coming off ankle surgery or something to do with his leg, so he's going to have a bit of a
Yeah.
late start to preseason.
Minor ankle surgery. The Dogs
Yep,
were hoping that he'd be back by now at full
yep,
training, not to be, but just after Christmas, start of the new year is the new timeline now. So, you know, he'll have a good run in for the second half of preseason at least. And yeah, don't have any issues with him being ready for round one. He'll be fine well before that. Actually, the list is pretty reasonably healthy from
That's
what
good.
I understand. So no excuses on that front either.
Exactly. So just gotta wait and see. Look, Matthew, I got you on for an important discussion. So obviously the SSP, rookies are sort of training with teams now, and we've got 6 players at the moment, and one of them, the new guy on the block, is your boy Lachie Sullivan, an inside mid who, let me just read these stats to you because they're just crazy. He was averaging 31 disposals, 7.6 clearances, 6 tackles, and 4.4 inside 50s per game in the VFL. He went on to win the coaches MVP. He was captain of team of the year, equal third in the JJ Liston Trophy, which is the VFL's sort of best and fairest, and back-to-back club best and fairest with Footscray or Western Bulldogs VFL, whatever you call you guys there. That is an incredible CV, and that's only just this year.
He's about as well credentialed a VFL player as you're likely to find. He's been with the club for a few years now. He's been captain for I think it's the last 3 seasons now.
Yep,
He was
correct.
part of a side that a Footscray side that probably would have won the premiership in 2021 had COVID not cut the season short. I think Footscray were undefeated in their first 10 games at that point. They were
Oh wow.
clearly the best side. Um, they've struggled on field a large part of the last couple of seasons. They had an extraordinary run to the second half of this season. I
This
think they
season.
won
Yep.
11 games in a row at one stage to get to
Crazy.
the semi-finals. And Sullivan was at the heart of that. And
Yep.
as you say, his form has been remarkably consistent over the past few years. I think he's won the VFL Best and Fairest twice. And Footscray had some very good players this season. I think Jordan Sweet was the ruck in the
Yes.
team of
Yep.
the year. Buka Karmas kicked, who I know was linked to Collingwood as well. I think he kicked
He was.
40
Yep.
goals at VFL
Far out.
level. And
Crazy.
yeah, Sullivan finished ahead of both of them as well. So yeah, and those numbers that you read out, was it nearly 31 disposals, I think it was, across the
Yeah.
VFL this season. Just an extraordinarily consistent midfielder, and it's a bit of a surprise that it's taken this long for him to
Get onto
make
the
his.
scene.
Well, I'm surprised that he hasn't made it onto a list yet.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
surprised that it still hasn't happened. I really thought the Dogs would have made a move by now, but no, not to be. It looks like Collingwood have given themselves well, clearly they're interested.
Yeah.
But there's a lot for
Well,
the
hoping
Pies
for it.
to weigh up though.
There is. So like the main thing that sort of surprises me is, so Dan McStay goes down with that knee injury, and then everyone's sort of thinking, okay, this must be a key forward on the market that we can sort of bring in. I think Gold Coast's key forward this season kicked. I think he won, most goals for the VFL. And off the back of their premiership as well. But we've gone for another inside mid. I think we have 3 or 4 training with us as SSP pick. Taylor Adams goes out. We know that Tom Mitchell is only getting older. So we're trying to look for that hard-headed guy. And this guy on paper, look, I can't say I've seen any Footscray VFL unless that one game where you just piped us in the end. I watched that game. But other than that, look, going off the stats and the paper and what I can see, he looks incredible, and some of his highlights as well. What do you think he brings besides these stats and stuff? What do you think he brings to a side like Collingwood, who are just coming off a premiership?
I think when you factor what he's been able to do in with the fact that he's been captain
Yep.
through a lot of that, it shows that the pressures and the responsibility that come with performing don't phase him. Of course, I mean we could spend all day going through examples of players who have been able to produce great numbers at VFL level, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason haven't
Come on.
quite been able to translate it through to the national competition. I
Yep.
don't think that would be a major issue for Sullivan. And I'm not going to say he's going to walk in and get 30 touches a week for
Yeah.
you. He'll
Yep.
probably still be a little bit behind the pecking order.
Yep.
But what you'll have in Sullivan, if you do pick him up, is you'll have a good depth option that you can drop in and will be able to perform for you straight away. He's 25 now. I think I'm not sure exactly when he turns 26. So, he's a mature player, maybe just about to enter the prime of his football career
Hmm.
within the next year or so as well. And consistent elite numbers off the back of 2 or 3 years. So he's done the
Good point.
apprenticeship and he's shown that he can produce great football over a sustained period of time. So when I was sort of thinking about what I was going to say about Sullivan and how he fits into Collingwood's plans, you're right.
Yeah,
Collingwood have a decision to make. Do they try and find someone to fill that McStay gap, or do they try and give themselves a bit of extra midfield insurance in case someone like a Mitchell goes down? And that's
exactly.
the decision Collingwood have to weigh up. But if they do go with Sullivan, they've got that insurance. If someone like a Mitchell goes down and they need a ready-made option, Sullivan can fit straight into that.
And look, we've talked about all his positives, and you gave him a good rap just there. What do you think is sort of keeping him back? Because I know from forums and stuff that I've been reading about him, you guys were pretty interested in him in the mid-season draft, but there was some sort of rule there that you couldn't bring him in. And he's nominated for the drafts and all this sort of stuff. What do you think is a bit of a knock on him for clubs, especially the doggies who are in need of these sort of midfielders, not picking him up, if there is any?
Yeah, I always whenever I talk about these sorts of players in the draft, I always say everyone goes where they do for a reason. The
Yep.
gems don't really slip through the cracks anymore as much as they did once upon a time. The Sullivan story about him not getting picked up was it was in the 2022 mid-season draft.
Mhm.
The rule was to apply for that draft, you had to have applied for the national draft the year before at the end of 2021.
Uh,
And he didn't do that because he was focused on his exams. He actually plain forgot to nominate for the draft.
uh,
So that's why, yeah.
yep.
So that's why he didn't get picked up. And yeah, clubs were interested at that point in time. And
Uh,
yeah, I know it's a
a
really
spew.
unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
What would I say that has held the Dogs back from going for him? It's hard to say. I know Luke Beveridge is a big fan of him, has been for a while, but
Okay.
ultimately he doesn't make the decision as to who the club drafts in. That's
Yeah.
the recruiters. Um, the only thing that I will say is that the Dogs have a bit of history of going for that type of player, that premier inside midfielder from Footscray that does well
Yep.
the year before. If you look at some of the players that we've drafted in previous years, they've all sort of done the same thing. Will Hayes was the earliest example.
Yep.
He was producing similar numbers in that sort of position, and the Dogs gave him a go, and it didn't really work out. Anthony Scott was another one who's had a bit more success. I think he's played over 50 games already for
Yep.
the club. The most recent example was Robbie McComb, who I think was Footscray's best and fairest winner in that 2021 season that I
Oh, okay.
mentioned.
Yep.
And has really struggled as well. And it was only on the list for 2 years and has been delisted just in the past couple of
Oh,
months.
well. Yep.
So, I suppose dry spitting 4 times shy would be what I would think it would be. That
Yeah.
the Dogs have
Yep.
tried this sort of thing before and it's not really worked. So they don't feel like it would be, worthwhile doing that again. Um, Not sure why other clubs haven't had a closer look. It could have the fact that he hadn't nominated for the draft could be a decisive factor in all of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, but yeah, there's not too many knocks on his game, really.
Okay.
He's a great leader. He knows how to find the football. He knows how to impact around the ground. It's clearly in terms of the VFL standalone players, one of
Yep.
the best going around in the competition. I think whoever gets him out, if Collingwood do decide to go for him, I think they've got a very good option. The only thing I could think of, he's probably reasonably limited. Very good
Okay.
inside midfielder. I don't know what strings he's got to his bow outside of that. Like
Okay.
you're not
Yep.
going to be able to, you're not going to be able to have him do an apprenticeship in the forward pocket.
Yes.
Um,
Okay. I know what you're saying.
so like
Yep.
he's inside midfield is his go. But if you can't fit him in there, you're probably going to struggle to find another spot for him.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. And sometimes, people, you could same concept be said about Tom Mitchell. You're not going to really stick him in a forward block and see how he goes. But look, from what you said, Lachie sounds exactly like a Craig McRae type. A leader. We just picked up Harry DiMattia, who was the captain of the Stingrays and Vic Country. Good leaders around the club. and the captain of team of the year, coach's MVP, third in the JJ Liston Trophy, behind Jared Lyons, who eventually ended up winning it. His resume, his CV speaks for itself. What you've given him a glowing rap. So if you were a Collingwood list manager, would you take him? Not putting your Bulldogs hat aside, do you see a need for him, and would you take him?
I think so.
Yep.
I think so. I feel like having as many options as you can through the midfield is still probably one of the most important factors in building a premiership side. The
Yep.
only, and look, I would have said definitely up until McStay's injury.
Yep.
That puts a bit of a bit of a question mark over things. Sure, you managed to win the grand final without him, but do you get to the grand final without him? His preliminary final performance,
That's
for instance.
exactly it. Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Can you find, do you have enough avenues to goal if you take him out of the mix? I still think you do.
Yep.
Because McStay didn't have the best year last year, and it was just largely due to injury. So he
Yeah.
didn't hit the
100%.
scoreboard as much as he would have liked, and you still won the thing.
Yep.
You could probably argue that you may well be able to do it again. And I mean, if Tom Mitchell goes down for whatever reason after
Yeah.
losing Taylor Adams, then the midfield's
You're
in a
stuffed.
bit of trouble. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
100%.
think providing that sort of depth in the midfield is probably more important than trying to find a stopgap in the forward line.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, if I were Collingwood, I'd certainly have Sullivan up there. He's about as credentialed as you're going to find in the state league. You're not going to find any midfielders better than him that aren't tied to someone.
No, we absolutely love that. Matthew, thank you so much for coming on for a chat, taking time out of your day. Where can we find the Salty Bulldogs?
The Salty Bulldog podcast, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcasts, any other site that you get your podcasts from. We've done for the season, I believe, at this point. We've done our last episode, but of course, we're going to be back next year, so stick around for that. We'll be giving our fans all the latest Western Bulldogs news, of course, during the summer, which will be on Twitter at the Salty Bulldog, Facebook, Instagram. There's our website as well,
Nice.
www.thesaltybulldog.wixsite.com/home. We're writing articles on all the new arrivals over the off season. It's part of our What Will He Bring series, so there'll be some
Beautiful.
stuff on that. And our YouTube channel as well will be back up and running for 2024 as well, Salty
Nice.
Bulldog TV. So tune in for that as well.
Awesome. Matthew, thank you so much, mate. I'll put all those links down below. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day, and a very Merry Christmas to you and yours, mate.
Always a pleasure, Luke. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, brother. Cheers. Bye.